Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It is February 13th of 2025, and I'm excited to be here today. This Flosstube in particular, shall I say, it's my favorite one of the year because I'm here to share with you my new for Nashville releases. For those who are new, welcome. For those who are returning, so glad to see you again. Appreciate all the love and support that this community gives. The teacher side of me wants to make sure everyone's on the same page. So if you are really new and kind of stumbled upon me or some other floss tubers, those of us in the stitching community, Nashville is this huge event that is coming up. I'm a designer. I design under the name WorksByABC because my initials are ABC. And Nashville is the once a year in-person wholesale marketplace. Wholesale marketplace meaning general stitchers just don't go in and buy. There's other events where, there's vendors and so on. It's a wholesale marketplace because the stores come and they purchase lots of stuff to bring back to their stores and their customers. It is what's called a cash and carry market. So for the most part, they come and say, I want 5 copies of that, and they're walking out the door with 5 copies of that. It's the idea that exhibitors, which are mostly designers, but you have fabric companies and thread companies and companies that make, lights or needle minders or associated accoutrement related to the stitching world. So all of us show up with full suitcases, full boxes, full everything. The store owners show up with a lot of empty suitcases and empty boxes. And the hope is at the end of the weekend, it's the reverse. Exhibitors go home with lots of empty boxes and bags, and the store owners go home and have a mad dash to price and organize and get everything ready. And many stores, brick and mortar stores, will do like a Nashville night. Lots of stores have been posting previews, pre-orders. Exhibitors are sending out emails to stores so that they know here's what's coming. My email is going to go out to stores right as today while this video is uploading. So I'm sort of timing everything as close as possible to stores seeing it and you guys seeing it as well. I'll also be posting on Instagram over the next couple of days everything that I'm sharing here. But just to kind of get it out, get the word out, because we all know not everyone can watch every floss tube out there. I mean, separate from designers sharing their new stuff, just there's so many floss tubes to watch, and I thank you for being here and being a little part of my stitching community. So without further ado, let me just jump right in. My last video, I went around, I gave little hints for each of my designs. I have 7 new ones that I'll be sharing. And I was trying to think this morning, what did I show for which and what? And some of them I remember, some of them I don't. I meant to go back and look, but that's okay. But I do know, so I'm sharing in alphabetical order, just because that's the order I have it written. So in my the hint that I gave for this first design I'm sharing with you was talking about my bestseller from Nashville 2024, still sells on an amazingly regular basis, and it is called 324. And this came out new in Nashville last year. Lots of people stitching it. If you have not seen it before, it is stitched with 324 different colors of DMC. And every other square is either a motif or just a solid square. And when this came out, so remember, 324, that's what it's called, 324. There were lots of posts and how fun it would be. And, if you just stitch 1 a day, you'll be done in less than a year. And some people have stitched it way faster than that. And other people, I've seen posts where they're doing that, or they catch up. I missed a week. Let me quickly stitch out 7 or 8 of them. But that stuck in my head. And so I don't know if you can imagine where I'm going. Sorry, I have things in all directions here. I don't know if you can imagine where I'm going, but here I am introducing to you 365. 365 a year in stitches. It contains exactly 365 different circles. They are all different. And it uses 365 different DMCs. The statement I've said so many times about 324 last year was I knew that I loved stitching that. Loved planning it out. I knew that it had great visual appeal, but I had no idea that there would be that many people out there that enjoyed the change new threads 324 times. But I have since learned a lot of people like doing that. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the next level. So just to share a little more background with all of this, I had this idea, 365. What kind of shapes, what could I do? That last one was based off of a tablecloth that I found on a museum website. This is something different. I was trying to think of something simple, small, where I could literally come up with 365 different variations. And I could give you a whole math lesson here on permutations and combinations and all the math I was doing, but it boiled down to there is no shape that I could come up with that had precisely 365 different variations. So I kind of kept playing around. The last one had very much of a square focus, so I think that's how I ended up landing on circles. Each of these circles, well, if we start in the center right there, that's a solid circle. It contains 37 stitches. That's all, 37. And as you go around in a swirl, there are fewer and fewer stitches, or more and more stitches get taken away. And to help you understand this, I've pulled out some of the stuff that I did in playing around with this. So here's me seeing, could I come up with 365 different circles? And so like, can I see up here? So like, I didn't want to do just a whole bunch of ones. And another thing I kind of limited to is that the only stitches that are taken away are from the edges, are from the inside. All the edge stitches remain. So, you know, I only did a couple things with ones, but here's a row of all the ways I removed 2 stitches, removed 3 stitches, removed 4 stitches, removed 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I kind of pulled this all together. And the whole color scheme thing, if you are attentive, now I'm holding it the way I have chosen to do it. I did the reverse, if you focus on the reds, okay? The reds in 324 start in the upper left, and here they start in the upper right. I just chose just to make it something different. The truth is, you can stitch it how you want. You can stitch it so it sort of is similar to the color scheme. 365 colors. Oh wait, let me do one thing at a time here. So when I said the swirl, this is what I mean. Like here's the center, and that's the one that is a complete circle. And as you go around like this, and so when you get to this upper corner, which is over here, that's where like 8 stitches have been removed over here. So it was just a fun, like, logical challenge to play with. And now let's talk colors. So 365 different colors that come from the DMC color card. I had originally thought, since I was expanding 41 more than 324, that I would just choose, I meant to have my real thread DMC color card is downstairs, so this is just the printed one, but you'll get the gist. The DMC color card is made up, the basic solid colors, has 20 columns. I mean, these are all like the other things, okay? And when I did 324, I only used the first 17, where am I? Up here, because those last 3 columns, grays and browns and blues, which on a certain design is perfect, but not what I wanted for this. So for 365, I'm like, yes, I'm going to bring in those columns. And I actually did. I had a version charted out. I know I have it printed to kind of remember it, but I just didn't like the way it looked. It got too muddy toward the end. So I went back to just columns 1 through 17. The other piece I thought about is, well, there's a lot of people who enjoyed stitching with 324 colors. There may be a lot of people wanting to stitch with 365. I at first thought I wanted to fix, and I'm putting that in air quotes for a reason, some of the color things that I only notice once I saw people stitching it. And here's the shorthand version of it. And I picked out one, and now I forget where I picked it out. Oh, like even starting from the very first. So on the DMC color card, where you see it like a light to dark, and then it starts over with a light to dark, it's like color families. So if you were to focus, first column right there, the first color family has 6 shades in it. And when I was originally plotting 324, I was using, I sort of picked out how many threads from each column and so on and so on. And let's just say I had decided I'm going to use 3 of the shades from this color family. And so I might have maybe not used the lightest, but I might have used colors 2, 4, and 6. And then the next color family, I might have ended up using the very first color, which meant, if you can follow with me here, it was a dark immediately going to a light. And in retrospect, again, as I saw a lot of those, jarring is too strong a word, but as I saw a lot of those color changes when I saw people posting about it, I was like, oh, I should have done it so it stays more within the middle range. And so then I would go from this one, let's say color 5, to maybe, color 2 or 3 here, so it wouldn't be as much of a jump. So at first I thought, it's like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and do it, fix things. And then I got to thinking, at least some of the people who are going to be interested in stitching 365 are the same people that might have already stitched or are stitching 324. They would probably get really annoyed at me if there was a whole lot of color differences, because it's a lot of threads to begin with. Now, I know there's been some people that have enjoyed using their stash. There's been friends that have gotten together, like I have these and I have these, and I'll give you a little, 12-inch piece or whatever it is of whatever's needed. So I rethought it. So 365 contains all of the 324 colors in 324 plus 41 new ones. And again, not from the later columns of the card, just more from those individual columns. In the pattern, I have included a numerical DMC list, which was certainly feedback that I gotten from the last one that wouldn't have been great. And so there's a list in here for all 365. In addition, there is a little list that says, if you have all the colors from 324, here are just the 41 new ones that you will need. So that might help some folks. I stitch this like I did the last one on 36 count antique white linen, 1/2. The reason I went 36, 32 is my sweet spot, and you'll see most of what I'm going to show you are on 32 count. The reason to go to 36 here is so I could just focus on one strand. If you're going to do that many color changes, why not make it a little bit easier for yourself? So just one strand. There's so many backstories to this, but I feel like this video is already going to be long. Obviously, you already know how long it is, and because I just have stories to share. If you have not been with me before, I am a storyteller. It's hard for me to say, here's design number 1, here's 2, here's 3. I love giving the background because all of my designs, all of them have some kind of story, some longer than others, whether it's the inspiration or the math I did or what have you. I did give a stitching suggestion, and I put it in the back. So as I was stitching initially, I was stitching diagonally to go with the DMC color card. But I know a lot of people, I've seen people who will stitch in rows or columns or starting from the center or whatever, but I'm usually a center starter. For this, I was stitching like DMC rows. And on the pattern, I was losing track. Don't worry. There are not 365 different symbols. That would be crazy. What you will see, and this is very similar to my 324 chart, is all the circles. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull this out a bit. They're just all using the same symbol. And then you get, if I can pull it out, come on. Sorry. All right. I got to pull the whole thing out because what I was doing is not working for me. There we go. You get a chart that shows you where to put the DMC numbers. I kept losing my place, focusing on, because every circle is different. So I came up with this idea. I took a sticky note, cut a circle in it, and that way when I was done stitching that circle, move the sticky note to the next one. It just made such a difference for me that I just thought I'd share that little hint. So that is, I'm just trying to make sure I've said what I needed to say before I go on to the auxiliary of that. Okay. So 365, if you are interested in stitching with 365 different DMC colors, here's going to be your opportunity. Now, let's talk threads, shall we? I did something for this pattern that I haven't done for any others. I'm offering a thread pack. Yes, a thread pack. 1 yard each of 365 different DMC colors. There's a story behind this, and I'm already going so long. Simply put, months ago, there was some thing that happened that was related to thread kits or thread packs for patterns, and it's never been something I've wanted to delve into. It just doesn't work for me. But I kind of jokingly said in my head, well, you know, would there be interest in 365? And then I just started exploring this and thinking about it, and I'm like, you ever have something you're thinking about enough that you just have to act on it? So I was able to find a printer, this was not easy, who would print me cards. Any printer will print me cards, but that would hole punch for me. And this is, I mean, it's hard to make a thread card of 306 cards. There are 17 cards in this ring. It's hard to make it look pretty. It's just, this is as laid out as I can get it. But why 1 yard? Well, big picture. For one circle, one of the more fuller circles, I used all of 12 inches of one strand of floss. And it just doesn't seem like it's worth putting these kinds of things together for something like that. And then I started thinking, again, many people have stitched 324 on the middle of it, but because all the colors in 365 are in 324, and not only in 324, but in the second 324 I did, which is called 324 the sequel, I'll circle back to that towards the end of this video. If you bought this thread pack, you would have enough thread to stitch all 3 of those designs easily. You will not go through I mean, I suppose if you're stitching on like 8 count or something, maybe we need to talk. And then you'll probably have leftovers to little places here and there where you just need, you know, a small amount. This could last you a long time. Now, really important about the thread cards. All of my designs will be available at Nashville for store owners to purchase and bring back to their customers. The thread packs are only something I'm selling directly through my Etsy store. It boils down to there was no cost-efficient way to be putting these together and selling them wholesale to make it such that a retail price would make sense. So I'm only selling them direct to customers. Sorry. And I just, in case you need proof, there's one particular line, and now I'm blanking on the name of it, of like imitation DMCs. For some people that just work perfectly. You could buy a whole set, I think, through Amazon. And could I see some thread pack company, like not an actual designer, but some thread pack company maybe using those because they're cheaper? Like maybe. How much would it make a difference? I don't know. It would make a difference with 365. So here's my living proof. I actually have 2 bags of these of, yes, I was going through a lot of DMC thread. So if there's interest, I could tell more about the story of this. But just so you know, these are available now as of my posting of this video on my Etsy store. There'll be links below. It is a pre-order. I will not be shipping them until I come back from Nashville. You cannot get the pattern from me until about 4 weeks. That is, a lot of designers do. It's called Nashville exclusives. And I think the problem with the word exclusive is that it gets misinterpreted. I know when I first heard the word Nashville exclusive, I thought that meant things that would only sell at Nashville. And then when the stores would buy however, and that was it. You could never get them again. I mean, to me, that's what the word exclusive means. And instead, something like that is called, I think, a limited edition or whatever. Exclusive just means, in stitching world anyway, exclusive for some period of time for some particular audience. So my patterns will be exclusive to customers who are purchasing from stores who have attended Nashville. And about 4 weeks later, they will then be available on my Etsy store, including PDF options. But this was my thinking. There might be some people who are looking at this and saying, yes, I want that. You can put in an order now as an Etsy pre-order. You can figure out what store you're going to purchase your pattern from. I will ship these out the week after Nashville. Hopefully your store owner will ship it out, and that way we all benefit. You're supporting a store owner, you're supporting me. I don't know if I'll ever do thread packs like this again, but it was one of those once I got the idea in my head. So maybe at a later video I can talk even more about the processes and how this went about, because I'm already 20 minutes in and I'm still in the first design. That said, 365 was the one I have the most to talk about. So it's time for me to move on to the next design. All right, I know what I did for the next design I'm going to show you, again, alphabetical order. The hint I gave in my last video was talking about a museum exhibit that I went to last June at the Smithsonian Art Museum about Amish quilts. And what I don't think I said specifically was, there were so many beautiful ones. But in the entrance area, like the first foyer of the exhibit, the quilt that was hanging there just immediately got to me. It was so stunning. And then I got closer, and because at my first glance, again, math brain, it said, I'm a middle school math teacher in the other side of my life. So yes, there's math that rolls around. I immediately thought, I can't do that like on a 45 grid. I couldn't think, but then I got closer. And I realized what I could do. So this design is called Broken Star Quilt. And the quilt pattern is a broken star. And the color scheme, which I just find is just so, to me, stunning. That's what got me when I looked at the quilt. I give full credit to that choice of color scheme to this anonymous Amish woman from about a century ago who created that quilt. Like many of the quilts that were a part of this exhibit, they don't necessarily know the owners. Sorry, I'm looking for the page to show you because I have multiple bookmarks in here and I should have identified which one goes with what I'm talking about. And I think it's this one. Here we go. So there's the quilt. The quilting of it. Can you see some of that amazing quilting? But it really got to me. Now, the background is black. I am not a huge fan of stitching on black. I've done it when I needed to, but not on, relatively speaking, such a large piece. So I chose to go with charcoal gray. So this is stitched on 32 count charcoal gray from Zweigart with just DMC colors. If there was ever a design that called for the simplest materials, meaning no hand-dyed fancy thread, or variegated threads, no hand-dyed fabrics, just the basics, the simples, it would be an Amish quilt design. The Amish, if you're not familiar, believe in a very simple life. And a lot of their quilts are just pieces of fabric that are left over because they make their own clothes. We could have a whole conversation about the Amish, and I don't, because I have a great familiarity with a particular family in a particular area. But just to say, I went with charcoal gray. I think it helps the black thread stand out a little bit more. I love it. I love the visual appeal, and I don't take credit for the color scheme. And this is great no-brainer stitching. Once you get things established, each diamond is, hopefully you can focus your eye on one place or the other. Each diamond is made up of 9 stitches. And it's just a repetitive pattern. I was stitching on this at the Grace Notes retreat in August. I've stitched on it a couple times on stitch days with my stitch group where you're chatting, you're talking, whatever. And I barely needed to look at the pattern because I was just, going in rings. And then I wanted to just comment about, so the collectors that were donating their collection to the Smithsonian, and Faith and Stephen Brown, they have a huge collection. And as it turns out, I've seen various exhibits of it at various times. So this was an exhibit that I know I saw in Washington, D.C. It seems like it was also at the University of Michigan in Art, 2001. So it's quite some time ago. But it is some of their quilts. And sure enough, in this book, actually, this is great to show you, there is the Broken Star quilt that just struck me. Here's another broken, as they call this one they call a Lone Star, which may or may not have been in the exhibit I saw. I'd have to go back and look at my pictures. And then I have a third book. This one, I'm pretty sure I just picked up somewhere because, again, my interest in the Amish and in Amish quilts. It seemed, this is, again, same collectors. This is an exhibit from the San Francisco, or at least Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. It may have traveled more than one place. This was from 2009. I don't think, I didn't see this in, De Young Museum. I feel like I've heard that name, probably from the Antiques Roadshow. But sure enough, there's that same Broken Star quilt. So I've now added my cross-stitch version to it. I think I gave you the details, 32 count charcoal gray. Oh, I forgot to do size. 365 year in stitches is 167 by 167, so not huge. Broken Star quilt, 149 by 149. So again, not huge. Okay, I got to start moving a little faster here, but if you're still with me, I'm hoping you're being entertained. Again, I'm someone that enjoys a good story, and so therefore I enjoy sharing a good story. My next design, I'm pretty sure the hint I gave in my last video was showing you this. This was Cherry Blossoms. It was one of my new for Nashville last year. I call it a series that I do. I call the Repeating Motif series. And if you can focus your eyes, can you see there's like a diamond motif that just repeats? And it's all about where you put the color thread that the image shows up. I've enjoyed doing these. This was my fourth. I'm just counting in my head. Yes, fourth. And I am introducing you today to number 5, Daffodils. And so again, if you focus your eye, you can see a motif that repeats. I really enjoy doing these. I love trying to figure this out. I purposely designed this with all the others. For 32 count, it fits perfectly in a 5x7 frame. Like that, that's my mindset for size. I have learned though, when it comes to any, pre-made frames like that, some of them you might have like 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches showing. You might have 4.25. Like, just double check before you pick up any 5x7 frame. All of these I have stitched with Gentle Arts threads. There are only 5 colors in this, and it is 65 by 95. Again, it fits in a 5x7 on 32 count. I stitched it on a plain Jobelin fabric. I also stitched these with only one thread. One strand. 32 count I usually do too, like the Broken Star quilt I do too. I do one strand here to give it a lighter effect. And actually, true story, and I meant to pull it out because I know I didn't throw it away. I got it all set up. First night I'm stitching, I'm just not thinking. And I was stitching with 2 strands. And I got a little bit into the first flower, and I'm like, I'm not liking this. Do I need to go change colors? And the next day it hit me. I was stitching with 2 strands. And that was actually the reason why it didn't look good to my eyes. So I know I didn't throw that scrap away so that I could share with you, but now I'll have to share it at some other time. Just so that you know, and your store owners know, the Gentle Arts people will be selling thread packs. So not directly from me, but at Nashville, they can go to the Gentle Arts Room and get a thread pack, again, for just these 5 colors. And I have this written on the pattern, but let me say it out loud as well. If you choose to stitch in 2 strands, you will definitely need 2 skeins of blue jay. That's, I mean, you could sort of see that's a lot of blue. Otherwise, because I just stitched 1 strand, 1 skein was enough for blue jay, goldenrod, orange, marmalade, pine, and evergreen. Oh, there is a Gentle Arts called daffodil, and I really wanted to use it, and I forget why. There was a reason why. I think I just needed a yellow and an orange that would be enough far apart, and that daffodil wasn't. But it would have been great if I'd fit it in, but I didn't. This is also the first of my repeating motif designs that is vertical. All the others have been horizontal. And at first I had a hard time, like, no, they should all be the same. I'm like, break out of the box, Arlene. It's okay if you turn it. And daffodils like this needed to go the other way. So I think I've said everything I need to say about daffodils. Okay, next up. So there's more than one flower design going on today. And so let me jump right in. The next flower design. Oh, why am I holding this? I need the actual. The next flower design is called Irises in the Garden. Irises and daffodils and violets and irises are definitely one of my favorite flowers. I'm a blue purple person, so it kind of makes sense that I would be drawn to flowers that are pretty much in that color category. For this design, it is mostly using ThreadWorks threads, so I'm sure this is what I talked about when I did my preview last video. And if you could, particularly the blue, it is the most perfect variegated thread for a flower design like this. Like, it could not have shown up any better. The green, the sort of like darkish, brownish, purplish when you look really closely. Yes, they're variegated. They're very subtle. The blue is not ridiculously crazy. There's a story about that in a moment. It's like the perfect level when you are stitching flowers that truly have variegated petals. ThreadWorks did not have the perfect. I needed 2 purples. I wish they did. And so the 2 purples that are used here are DMCs. There are 5. It's on the pattern, Arlene. There are 5 ThreadWorks and the 2 DMCs in the chart. Just to share with you, these are a mess, but maybe I even showed this blue. I mean, I just love that. So like here's a purple that I ended up, that had such great variegation, but it just didn't work. I needed 2 purples that worked together, and they didn't work together. This is stitched on 32 count Grace Notes fabrics in the color French Vanilla. It is actually showing up really well on the screen because it almost at a distance you could think, oh, is that just on white? It's one of these wonderful hand-dyed fabrics that is subtle. You don't even realize it, but then when you see it, you realize how much it adds to the design to have something like this. Grace Notes fabrics, you can buy from them directly on their website. I think some stores also sell them. I met Corinne a couple years ago at Nashville. Like I said, been to her retreat. She's been to mine. It's just, I really love their fabric. And the size is 147 by 212. On the 32 count, this works out to be a little over 9 by 13 inches. There was something else. Oh, well, no, I'll finish. Hopefully I'll remember to finish that sentence in a minute. Because it's about the inspiration for this design. So I don't know if there's anything more to say about that other than to lead into the inspiration. So my next design, which I'm about to pick up, is from my lace series. And let me just pause here and say, some of this design came from a piece of lace. Does lace need to be white? Nope. So I've even been expanding my thinking behind the way I use lace as inspiration and It doesn't need to stay within my lace series. I'm working on another design similar that will probably be an August marketplace release that, again, it's based on a piece of lace. There's not a white thread in there. So, speaking of lace designs, I think, so much stuff. I think the hint I gave in the last video was showing Majestic Lace, which was my lace design that was Nashville from last year. And just to kind of go with the flow, this was Exquisite Lace, which was my lace design from 2023. Now, you could even see by the difficulty I'm having holding these are large lace designs. I love the way they turn out. A number of people love the way they turned out. I just gotta put something. For this one, I even stitched up just one flower just to show you can love a large design, know you don't want to stitch the whole thing, but pick out something that you love of it. So you can tell, I love these lace designs. The last few that I've done have been large, and I have heard loud and clear feedback along the lines of, Arlene, your lace designs are so pretty, but can you make one a little smaller? And so I have actually charted out a design that I thought I was going to use for Nashville 2025. But over the summer, well before I was ready to stitch or think about color or anything, that just got stuck in my head. And I said, you know what? It's time to do a smaller design. So I am introducing to you Lovely Lace. All of my lace designs have adjective lace in the title. And last year when I was brainstorming what to call that large purple one, somebody had proposed in the list of options Lovely Lace. And lovely is a lovely adjective. That big one required an adjective that was just a little more. But one this size, it's lovely. That's my thinking. So, details. It is stitched on, so here's where I use 36 count garnet fabric from Weeks Dye Works. Very subtle but beautiful, very subtle, variegated, a beautiful color to use. It is not Aztec red. That one's more red. This is a little more on the pinkish side. I meant to pull out my DMCs and trying to find one to help you see what it matches up to. But hey, it's a monochrome design. Stitch on any fabric color, any color thread. Just because it's lace does not mean you have to stitch with white by any means. So I stitch on 36 count because for all my lace designs, pretty much all of them, I like to use the thread called Flosh. And it is not as well known within the cross stitch world as a lot of other threads, unless you've been listening to my channel and hear me talk about it. It only comes on these very large hanks. So that alone is a reason why not that many cross stitchers know about it or use it by any means. But for a monochrome design, it's great. It gives, for me, wonderful coverage for a 36 count where I only need to use one strand of it, because one strand of it is about equal to 2 strands of DMC floss. Now, there are the sulkies that'll, especially they themselves market it as equivalent to about 2 strands. And I've done a few little test stitching and it's fine. It absolutely would work. I just like the way Flosh covered better. That was me, my opinion. So the majority of this is 1 strand Flosh. There are a few little highlight areas you could see in the center there that are just 1 strand of floss tent stitch. And that's all. I love the frame. Do you see the swirls of the frame and how that basically matches the swirls here? Like, could you get any more appropriate? And again, you don't have to stitch with Flosh. You can stitch 2 strands of DMC or stitch whatever count you want, and whatever number of strands work for good coverage for you. Stitch count is 157 by 157, so let's face it, a lot smaller than the 300 that I think Majestic Lace was. So I hope this brings some joy to some of the people who have loved the lace designs and wanted to tackle one that's a little more doable. Any other things to say here? I don't think so. All right, what am I up to? That was 5, right? Yes. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there, people. Number 6. I know what I would have shown for my preview in the last video were the threads. So 2 years ago at Nashville, a whole bunch of designers released a design all using the same 4 threads and only those 4 threads, and they were Treenway silks. The maximum design size was 60 by 60, and the theme was tea time. And there were 2025. It was so cool to see the variations of how different designers interpreted that theme and how different designers used the threads. This year, it's happening again. This year, the theme is Night Garden. And the Night Garden theme is using Threadworks. I already talked about them once, threads. These are my leftovers from my stitching. There. Well, let me jump to my design and then talk more. So, Night Garden. Night Garden. Night Garden. What am I thinking there? What am I thinking there? Story time. Do you ever have something that has stayed in the most random, smallest, stupidest thing that for whatever reason gets stuck in your head from like literally decades ago? Somewhere in my thinking about Night Garden, I remembered from reading a book when I was in high school, the first little introduction of it. Well, the book, there is a mystery series called Mrs. Polifax series. I think the first one is called The Amazing Mrs. Polifax, which I recently reread because somebody posted, is either Nicole Buckeye Stitcher or Allie in Australia. Allie Stitching Studio, Allie I forget, she has a book one too. Anyway, someone had recently reposted or posted that they had read the Mrs. Polifax book. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'd like to read that again. It's a very light-hearted, easy read if you're in the mood for it. Mrs. Polifax in the first book is this like retired, grandmotherly, joined the garden club and all of that woman who one day walks into the CIA and volunteers to be a spy. And it's a great book. So I enjoyed rereading. It's a whole series. I had a high school teacher who loved mysteries, was often sharing, and it was because of her I read the first Mrs. Polifax. And then one of the others that I read, I knew, this is the random fact, that it began with Mrs. Polifax and her garden club waiting around for a flower to bloom that only bloomed once a year at night. And I had to Google, find the name, a night blooming Sirius. Now, if I have just set off any device you have that is SIRI, my apologies, because I was setting it off on my own devices, saying it out loud. Why in the world I remember that from a book I haven't read in the longest time, and I'm not a gardener, and I can't tell you why. I actually wanted to get a copy of it from the library. I think it's the one called The Elusive Mrs. Polifax, and I had requested it, didn't come in yet, being transferred between libraries. Oh well. So I am introducing you to my night garden design, which I am calling Night Blooming Sirius. And that's why I had to Google how to pronounce that, and that's why I started setting off my devices for saying it. It's a stylized version of the flower. No one's going to claim it's exactly, but a night blooming Sirius is actually a category of types of cactus. I'm no garden expert here. I'm just reporting what I've read. And most of them in the pictures do have light colored petals. So this light color was perfect for me. I love the variegation of these threadworks that we used. All 4 and only these 4. You can especially see the variegation in the center in that flower, like the off-white beigey color. I got a little bit of a lighting issue here. You see some back stitching that I used. And you can also see all this right here. They're just tent stitches, one strand tent stitch, nothing fancy. But I think it just gives a different kind of look to it. So the other thing to know, and you will see a whole bunch of patterns that have this, where my logo that says Night Garden. So any that you see that logo on are a part of this theme. There will be thread packs sold to stores, which then you can purchase from Threadworks directly. Now, I am holding up, their threads come either in 5-yard skeins or 20-yard skeins. And what I'm holding up here, designers were sent 5 yards. I mean, the design is limited to 60 by 60. How much thread could you possibly use? However, the thread packs are going to be sold in with the 20-yard skeins. And just to show you, here's an example. Here's another purple that I couldn't use. Here's an example of what a 20-yard skein looks like. You could stitch a lot of these night garden designs with this 20-yard skein. And so I think that's part of the appeal, is that to buy a thread pack gives you the opportunity to stitch a lot of them, plus to have some great Threadworks threads to play with. I stitched mine on 32 count Stormy, I always say this wrong, a Stormy Night Belfast linen. If you are familiar with Zweigart's, vintage country mocha, which is kind of like a printed version of a hand-dyed fabric, Stormy Night is the gray version of that. And then there's another one. Is it called Stormy Clouds or something that's sort of the white version? Anyway, and I got bright light going here, so it's the fabric is more gray than what you are seeing right now. So I love my little contribution to the Night Garden. I am hoping I get that Mrs. Polifac's book in and see if my complete memory of it, meaning it gets mentioned in the first couple of paragraphs, and there's nothing else about it for the rest of the book. And why I remember that. I'm not a gardener. It's not like I have a lot to do with things growing in nature kind of stuff in my daily life, but there you go. All right, I got to keep moving here. Thank you so much for staying with me. The last design, I wanted to do some something little, but fun little. And sorry, I have to do a little assembly thing here. Back in the fall, I had a design in just cross stitch. It was an autumn design where I used 3, 4, not solids. I used Weeks Dye Works, but more of their solid looking ones, orange, brown, yellow, fall colors. But to pull it all together, I used a pretty variegated weeks that included yellows and oranges and browns. And a lot of those highly variegated threads, Weeks, Gentle Arts, whatever, like I put aside, I'm never going to use those. Well, I've been proven wrong, because after stitching that fall design and loving it so much, I wanted to play with the idea. So this is Weeks Dye Works Bethlehem. And you can certainly see right away, highly variegated. You got blues, you got purples, you got pinks, you got greens. So I picked this and I stitched 3. I can't do this very well. Hold on. You'll see why in a minute, why I have to set something up. I stitched 3 different designs. So they're different, but they're all round and they're all the same size. And for each of them, I used the Bethlehem thread and a different solid DMC, the color that I pulled from the design, from the Bethlehem thread. So here's one in green. Here is one in blue. I do not have 3 hands, so I can't hold them all up at the same time. And here is purple. And I just love how when you stitch the highly variegated next to a solid that is in the highly variegated, how different it plays out. And it was a fun experiment. Now, truth is, each of these designs involve all of 2 colors. You can stitch them in any color you want. They are each, I have lost where I am. I'm sorry if I have forgotten any pieces of information. They are each 49 by 49. I stitched them on Cafe Mocha Country French linen from Witchell, 2/2. Now, I'm trying to think of a finishing way to do this. Little hoops. I think I've done one or two things in little hoops. And, it's fine. It could become something that you hang or something you lean against or make a little stand. Little stand. What can I do? I found these on Amazon, people. They are meant to hold hoops so that the cutout there is for the screw part of the hoop. Now, I will say it works and even looks that much better when the hoop is larger. These are 4-inch hoops. But a larger hoop, it is going to be like my new, I'm not going to say go-to, but this is definitely going to be a finishing way that I'm going to use again. When there's a design that is round, that just kind of makes sense to want to finish it off in a round way, nice hoop, maybe some sort of, I did cording, I made cording in the same DMC color, something there, and it just sits in this little thing right here. So this was a fun find. I mean, like I said, this is what it's meant for. You can cut them out. When I was showing some friends, somebody said, "Oh, I have something like that they got maybe at a quilt store or something." So they're out there. I had never seen or heard of them. It was a find on Amazon when I forget exactly what I Googled to figure that out. Was there anything else to say? I gave you the threads and the colors and everything. So those little ones I'm calling stitching in the round. Have I forgotten to say names of stuff? No, hopefully I haven't. Stitching in the round. You get all 3 designs in here. So there we go. That's my 7 new designs. Ooh, sorry. I'm so glad I looked at my piece of paper. Two more things, quick. Another thing that is going to be in my store email, the sequel, which I have a whole video about it. You can go back a few videos when I released it in the fall. Up until this point, it has only been available through my Etsy store. I so appreciate how many people support me and are purchasing it. Wonderful. Especially if you're a store owner watching. I don't know if store owners have time to watch Reveal Flosstubes. Or if you're someone that just doesn't purchase online at all, it will be available for sale to stores for the first time at Nashville. So you can tell your store owner if buying from me through Etsy just doesn't work for you, which is fine, your LNS will be able to purchase a copy of the pattern for you. And to know more about this, go back to my video 2 or 3 videos ago where I'm holding this up in the thumbnail. You'll know it's all about this one. And then the last thing, again, so glad I wrote it down. In my last video, I had offered a giveaway. And what I am offering, I wrote down all the names. I did random number generator, came up with 3 numbers. So 3 winners. This is for any pattern you want, paper or PDF. Not my new Nashville designs. It's got to be something else before my Nashville designs. And it doesn't include the sequel because that's just such a huge pattern. So any other design, PDF or paper copy, and I'll ship to you for free. So my 3 winners on here, which some of these names sounded so familiar, so please bear with me if I know you and I'm not remembering you. So Carol Menard 448. So Terriers 1955 and XCB, EXIEB, were numbers 37, 27, and 4 on my list. So please be in touch. I'll try to remember to go back and comment on my previous video. Let me know what pattern you want. WorksByABC@gmail.com. The link is down below. If you see anything that you like, please make sure to tell your LNS or ONS local needlework store, often what is used when you say brick and mortar store, and ONS, online needlework store. There's a lot of great ones out there. If you want to buy something of mine or anybody's and you don't have a place to go, I have 2 friends that have online shops that I'll go ahead and recommend. Top Knot Stitcher, we have worked together very well. We were together for our first Nashville. I was there as a visitor. She was shopping for the first time. She has a great following. She does excellent customer service. She literally hangs out in the area for a week or 2 afterwards with her sister and ships like crazy. And then Jen, she just opened a brick and mortar store a couple of months ago. She had been doing online for a year or 2 beforehand, and her store is called Floss and Flame. I will link her below. So I know Abby certainly goes with because I've seen her huge lists and her spreadsheets and everything. I imagine Jen will be doing the same. So find a store owner to support, because by default you'll then be supporting the exhibitors when they're selling to the store owners, and it's a win-win for everybody. All right, I was kind of hoping I could get this in under an hour, and I'm doing it. If you have any questions, please, of course, write them below. It's so fun to share this with all of you. And I love to be able to tell stories. And if you're here till the end, I hope you enjoyed my stories. So I guess that's it. My next video is it's going to be a report post Nashville. What I see, it's a wonderful experience. It's a little nerve-wracking. It's a lot of long days and a lot of energy, especially for the introverts of the world. But it is a great opportunity within our stitching community to know store owners, to build those connections, because you just don't know where they will go. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate being a part of this community, about you coming here and hanging out with me for almost an hour. Till next time. Bye.